Hey everybody, welcome to another video here. We're going to be talking about cleaning up a Pro Tools session and, keeping a session nice and tidy, because that can actually help you work more quickly, and it's also better for the computer because it doesn't have to worry about doing things like fades between sections and such. It actually will give you a little more processing power for getting plugins to work properly and avoiding CPU errors and things that might come up from having too many sessions going up against each other and things like that. So this is a session file that I recorded probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and I just kind of pulled it up out of the archives to play with it now and sort of just demonstrate some techniques that I've used before that have helped sessions run more smoothly. And also, this is something that I would usually do if somebody were to send me a session, because one of the things I offer as a service at JB Recording here is mixing of your tracks for you. So if you've recorded a song in another studio and you'd like me to mix the tracks for you, kind of this is how I would handle first looking at your session to get it ready for work. So just taking a quick look at this, it looks like we've got I kind of will go through the tracks here. So it looks like we have some we have two mics on a bass drum for a drum set. It's top and bottom snare mics. We've got 3 overheads, left, center, and right. We got a DI bass, and then we've got a couple of electric guitar tracks here. We have a lead guitar, and then let's see, a lead vocal. There's some harmonies here. We have acoustic body and neck mics, and then it looks like some more acoustic guitar work over here. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is these white boxes. Now, in Pro Tools, if you have a white empty box, it usually means that it doesn't know where the original file is. So this is a case where I would probably just shoot you back an email and say, hey, I'm missing this particular file, and then I would need you to send that to me if you want that included in the mix. This particular song, I do know where that file is. I'm not going to bother with it for the moment, but this is one where Pro Tools would try to relink to that file if it could find it. Otherwise, it just simply won't play it. So I'm just not going to worry about that track for right now. So the first thing that we're going to want to look at is the fact that we have a lot of regions that kind of butt up against each other here. We have a lot of edits. Now, when it comes to the actual working of the song, edits are totally fine, nothing wrong with them. But when you are getting ready to mix the track, you want to try to minimize the amount of edits that you have, because the computer has to actually play a crossfade between these two tracks right here. So these two regions, I'm sorry. And it considers these to be 2 separate files. So when this file finishes playing and has to go to this one, it has to play a whole separate file. So the way we can counteract that is if we just make them one long file each. So I'm just going to select all the drums right here. And I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut in Pro Tools, Option-Shift-3. And that's consolidating the tracks. So now what we've done was we've basically taken out all those edits, and now we have one continuous file for each drum mic that we have here. So I can go do the same thing for the bass and the guitars. Option-Shift-3. And then we're going to continue on the same thing. Now, I'm not going to do that missing harmony vocal because it'll give me an error message if I try to do it, because it doesn't know where those files are. So I'm just going to come down to here as well. And that's all I need to do. Okay. So now by consolidating all these, now Pro Tools can just play one file from start to finish. So it's one less thing for it to do. And I found that Pro Tools tends to be very picky when it comes to having a large session and having a lot of edits and whatnot. It can kind of throw a hissy fit if there's too many edits or crossfades or whatnot going on. So consolidating these files is definitely a huge help to making sure Pro Tools doesn't piss you off in the long run. So the next thing I'm going to do is looks like we have 2 rhythm guitar tracks here. We have a rhythm left and rhythm right. Now, most likely these are a part that was just doubled, and I'm just going to take a quick listen to a few sections here. Now, normally if I was listening to a session that someone sent me, I would listen through all the way to make sure there wasn't a solo kind of hidden in here someplace, but I'm fairly certain this is just doubled tracks. So I'm just going to listen to a couple of spots here. All right, I'll skip ahead a little bit. So there's a little lick going on in there. Let's see what that's all about. Okay, so it's just 2 different parts, but still doubled for the most part. Okay, so that's good. So these are basically just 2 double tracks. Now, the reason why I'm listening to these particular tracks is that when it comes to a double track like this, I would usually bus them, or I would kind of send those tracks to the same spot and then treat them as one item, because I don't need to process them separately, because they're just kind of something for texture or something for added added body in a mix. So I don't need to do anything special to these. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new track. So I'm going to do Command Shift N, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a stereo audio track and just put these files on that stereo track. For some reason, this is something that I've only been able to do in Pro Tools. It seems like in any other digital workstation program I've used, like Logic, Cubase, and such, it doesn't seem to be an easy way to go from 2 mono to a single stereo track. So that's one feature of Pro Tools I really do like. And now I can get rid of these 2 tracks and rename this one as Rhythm Guitars, because I can just throw one plugin on these, maybe throw a compressor on here, maybe a little EQ or something to sit them in the mix. And I don't have to waste a bus or worry about soloing and grouping and whatnot, because I'm having to deal with 2 elements. Now I can just deal with just one. So that's another thing I would do there. And again, Pro Tools only has to play 1 stereo file now that I've moved them to a new track. Okay, so let's see what else we got going on here. How else would we clean this up? Now I'm going to go over to the mix window now. So the other thing is, when I'm mixing, I like to mix with the wider faders. And in Pro Tools, it's Command Option M, as in Mary, to change the width of the mixer faders. I like to have the wider mixer faders, so that I can actually post comments in here if I need to. If I'm going to set up a delay, for example, I might put in what the millisecond number is for a specific delay and such. I find it's easier to work this way. But again, you may find that you prefer the narrow faders. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you. I'll also remove any plugins that are up here. If I hold Option and go to one of these plugin spots up here, I can remove all the plugins across the entire session here. So now that I've sort of optimized my editing area, I'm going to kind of optimize my mixing window as well. So for the most part, I like to work from left to right, with the drums all the way on the left and the vocals all the way on the right. So I know my lead vocal is in the middle here somewhere. So here's that lead vocal right here, and there's a harmony track right next to it. I'm going to go ahead and move those all the way to the edge, to the periphery here. All right. So now I've got my drums. Then usually I like my bass right next to it. So there's the bass. Here's my first guitar track. Here's that new rhythm guitar stereo track that I created. So now we have our lead guitar right after that. Now we have all these acoustic tracks. Now, we have 4 acoustic tracks. These 2, one is neck and one's body. So in terms of how I did the rhythm guitar track, I could do that for these as well, because Pro Tools gives you separate panning controls for each of those files. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go back to my mix window here. Back to my editing window. And I'm going to take these 2 files and do that same trick that I did before. So I'm going to make a new track here. Let's call that a stereo track. And I'm just going to take these 2 and bring them right down. Now this here was, I remember with this particular track, this was some acoustic stuff that was going on at the end. We're not going to use it, but I'll put it there anyway. So if we decide to use it later on, we can. Now I can delete these 2. And again, I've just saved myself another track. Acoustic main. All right, now let's see what these are. Let's see what this is. Okay, so it sounds like it's just like a little noodling or something. So let's do the same thing. Let's go ahead and put these on their own track. All right, let's combine them. And let's get rid of them. Perfect. Excellent. Now, given that we know from the previous tracks, we know that the way the guitar was mic'd, there was one by the neck and one by the hole. One mic by the neck, one by the hole. So if we listen to this right now, the neck mic would be panned all the way one way, and the hole mic would be panned all the way another way. That might not be a good panning setup for mixing this tune. Okay, yeah, it doesn't quite sound right. So I'm going to play with the panning a little bit. So that's a little better. Let's bring that other track in here too. Alright, so that kind of works nicely, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to shift them over a little bit. So the rhythm acoustic is going to be a little more to the left, and this sort of noodly one's going to be more to the right. So now what that's done is that's created a little bit more of an interesting contrast between the two. So if we put that in context now, let me turn the vocal off for a minute. Okay, let me actually go back to where that guitar plays here. So now, if we listen to that, the main acoustic is sort of off to the leftish, and these little noodly things are off to the rightish. So rather than having all the guitars coming straight up the middle, it's going to be nice and interesting. If I take out the electrics, okay, so it's a nice way to sort of take those two guitar tracks and, you know, have them complement each other a little bit. So that's going to finish this video up a little bit. I didn't want to get into mixing anything quite yet. That's going to be at on a future video. But I just wanted to show you how just doing a couple of little simple things can actually help your help your session workflow a little better. And also just make it more efficient on your computer, so that way, once we start loading this up with plugins and automation and all this other stuff, that the computer will not yell at you for having too many files, butting up against each other and such. So, thanks very much for watching this. And if you have any other topics you'd like to see covered in future videos, by all means, shoot me an email, john@jbrecording.com, or head over to my website, www.jbrecording.com. Click on Contact. Hit me up from there. Let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll be happy to do a video on that for you. Thanks again for watching. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel here if you like what you see, and you'll see more stuff coming soon. Thanks again, guys. Have a great one.